Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to episode 30 of Codename Kids Next Door, Operation Fountain. We begin this episode at Gallagher Elementary School, where we see a girl named Leona enter the bathroom, and she's walking towards the sink saying that it's time to, in her words, freshen up. Suddenly, Leona is ambushed by Lunk of the 6th Gum Gang, but we notice that Lunk has now been delightfulized, and the delightful children from down the lane make their presence known shortly afterwards. The delightful children tell Leona that surely she knows the reason why they're here, and Leona responds that they're probably here to go to the bathroom. She even goes as far as to question them how they in particular go to the bathroom. But the delightful children are in no mood for games. They insist that Leona knows that they're looking for something, and they demand that Leona tell them where this something is exactly. Leona continues to insist that she doesn't know what they're talking about, so the delightful children order Lunk to give Leona a swirly, or they describe it as taking Leona to Mr. Swirly's office. Afterwards, the delightful children reiterate their demands, and they add that if Leona continues to not talk, they'll take her to Mr. Swirly's downtown office, which is giving her a swirly in an even more revolting toilet. Leona relents and tells them that they simply need to turn the faucet on a particular sink. The delightful children follow Leona's instructions, and sure enough, the sink opens up, revealing a pathway underground. The delightful children want Leona to accompany them so that she can show them the precise location of what it is they're looking for, and one of Leona's 4 gold wristbands falls off of her wrist when she's accompanying the delightful children down the pathway. The delightful children also instruct Lunk to remain in the bathroom to stand guard just in case any, as they put it, uninvited guests arrive. After the delightful children and Leona walk down the pathway, one of the stall doors opens up and hits Lunk, so Lunk ends up hitting the wall and becomes unconscious. We see that number 5 is the one responsible for opening the stall door, and she says along the lines that there are going to be 5 uninvited guests for this journey down this pathway. Number 5 activates a 2x4 technology device to send an alert to her teammates, the other Sector V operatives. Number 1, number 2, and number 3 place dummy replicas of themselves in their seats so their teachers won't know that they're missing. Or in number 3's case, it's actually a balloon that says the word me on it. As for number 4 actually dug a tunnel underground so he could escape from school, and he's not happy when he gets the alert, but he still begrudgingly returns into the school to answer number 5's alert. Soon enough, the rest of the Sector V operatives meet number 5 in the bathroom, and they inquire her about the alert. Number 5 explains that Leona has been kidnapped by the delightful children, and they're all journeying down this pathway underground. Number 4 and number 2 recognize Leona as Leaky Leona, and they have no idea why the delightful children would be interested in kidnapping Leona. Number 4, however, also thinks that this is a waste of time, and he's trying to leave the bathroom, but number 5 stops him and tells him that it's the Kids Next Door's job to help kids in need. So number 4 begrudgingly agrees to join his teammates on this rescue mission. So the Sector V operatives proceed to head down the pathway, and soon enough they come across an ancient school. Number 5 admits that she's heard rumors of an ancient school being underground their current school. But now the Sector V operatives have seen for themselves that these rumors are very much true. The first room they enter is the library, and so they have to try and stay quiet. Unfortunately, number 3 and number 4 are not talking in their indoor voices, and number 1 accidentally drops one of Leona's gold wristbands, and it ends up hitting a delicate item, which causes a lot of noise. So the door to the next room is closing. So the Sector V operatives, a trap has been activated, and the door to the next hallway is closing. So the Sector V operatives have to rush through the closing door before it fully closes, and they do make it. They're in a hallway now before the next chamber, and number 4 continues to grumble about how close he was to breaking out of school before he got number 5's alert. But number 5 insists that the kids next door are the only ones who can help Leona out. Soon enough, the Sector V operatives arrive in the next chamber, the cafeteria, and unfortunately the trap is set the trap activates when number 2 starts to pick up some of the food from the cafeteria. The trap takes the form of the room filling up with milk. But fortunately, the Sector V operatives are able to escape this trap, and they're able to enter the hallway before the next chamber. Number 4 has become even more angry, and he's losing his patience, and he demands an answer for why they're trying to help Leona out. Number 4 thinks that it's a waste of time because they hardly know Leona, and she hasn't really helped them out in any significant way before. Number 5, however, is also losing her patience. More specifically, she's losing her patience with number 4's stubbornness about the mission. So number 5 simply tells number 4 that number 5 couldn't forgive what the Delightful Children had done to a kid that number 5 was not able to help when this kid was kidnapped by the Delightful Children. After she makes this cryptic answer, number 5 continues forward through the hallway, but number 4 continues to question about what the Delightful Children did that was so horrible to this other kid that number 5 was not able to rescue. Number 1, though, answers for number 5. Number 1 reveals that he was the kid, and the Delightful Children's actions were what led to number 1 becoming prematurely and permanently bald. Number 4 can't help but be in stunned silence as he hears this answer. Soon enough, the Sector V operatives head to the next chamber, the gym, but yet another trap activates, this one being dodgeball related. Number 4 is actually able to stop the trap. He mentions that gym is the class that he's good at in school. So using his dodgeball skills, number 4 is able to destroy the trap in the gym, and now he's actually enthusiastic about rescuing Leona, much to number 5's surprise. Pleasant surprise, mind you. Soon enough, the Sector V operatives have arrived in a new chamber, and they see Leona has been chained up to a pillar. But when they get closer to Leona, they see that Leona is now an elderly woman, and she's pleading with them, or she pleads to the Sector V operatives to take her to the fountain. They don't know what she's talking about exactly, but Leona clarifies she's talking about the Fountain of Youth. Number 1 in particular is surprised to hear this. He comments about how they could stay 10 years old forever he says they could stay kids forever if they were to drink from the Fountain of Youth. But as they untie Leona from her chains and they head around the pillar to the other side, they see the Fountain of Youth itself. It's on a circular platform that's attached to the rest of the chamber through a stone bridge. And before the Sector V operatives can do anything else, however, the Delightful Children make their presence known. The Sector V operatives demand to know what the Delightful Children have done to Leona. They simply comment that the Sector V operatives haven't figured it out yet, but it doesn't really matter. Leona has taken them where they want to go, so the Sector V operatives can have Leona now, they say. And the reason why they wanted to find the Fountain of Youth is to destroy it. They believe that the main goal of kids should be to become adults, and they think that the Fountain of Youth is counterproductive to that goal, saying that if more kids were to find out about the Fountain of Youth, they'd be tempted to drink from it so they could remain kids and not become adults. And the delightful children refuse to let that become a possibility. So they're carrying a briefcase with them, and they open it up, revealing the briefcase transforms into a giant vehicle, which essentially could be described as a demolition vehicle, and they intend to destroy the Fountain of Youth with it. The Sector V operatives do manage to, they have to figure out a way to stop the delightful children's attacks with this demolition vehicle. So number 5 manages to trick the delightful children into knocking down some other pillars within the room, which causes the pillars to fall on top of the delightful children's vehicle. Soon enough, though, the vehicle starts to act wonky, and it ends up falling into the Fountain of Youth, which turns the delightful children into toddlers. Now that the delightful children have been dealt with for the time being, the rest of the Sector V operatives quickly place Leona into the fountain, and when she emerges to the surface, she's now a kid again. Number 1, however, starts to realize that Leona needed the fountain in order to become a kid again, so he starts to realize something. Leona ends up finishing number 1's speculation for him and confirms his speculation to be accurate. Leona is truly an adult. She explains that she's actually centuries old. More specifically, Leona explains that it was 300 years ago when she first came across the ancient underground school and the Fountain of Youth. She explains that the Fountain of Youth's effects, however, are only temporary. The fountain's effects usually wore off for Leona by the time she made it back to the school. Because of the temporary effects of the fountain, Leona could never actually leave Gallagher Elementary School, so she continued to relive the 4th grade for 300 years to continue to use the Fountain of Youth, but she considers the payoff to be worth it because she's enjoyed being able to stay a kid forever, or at least for 300 years now, and her secret has been kept for 300 years, but somehow the delightful children managed to find out about the Fountain of Youth, and that's why they intended to destroy it. While Leona is explaining her story, the delightful children sneak off. They take advantage of the other characters present being distracted so they can sneak off somewhere. After Leona finishes her story, she thanks the Sector V operatives for helping her with regards to the delightful children, and then she says it's regretful that she has to destroy them. She pulls out a squirt gun, which is filled with water from the Fountain of Youth, and she proceeds to start spraying the Sector V operatives with this squirt gun, which turns them into toddlers. Leona insists that more people who know about the fountain will try to destroy it like the delightful children, and she can't risk the Fountain of Youth to be destroyed. Number 5 in particular tries to reason with Leona, saying that they don't want to destroy the Fountain of Youth. They were just trying to help her. That's their only reason why they followed after the delightful children. But Leona is still paranoid. She insists that she can't take any risks, and she's preparing to deliver the finishing blow to the Sector V operatives. One more squirt and their births will be reversed, essentially. But before Leona has the chance to reverse the births of the Sector V operatives, the delightful children, still in their toddler form, re-enter their vehicle, and they manage to start it up again in order to destroy the fountain. But instead, they end up destroying the bridge instead. and the delightful children in their machine fall down the chasm, and the Fountain of Youth is starting to fall apart as well. Leona, however, runs towards the fountain, refusing to let it disappear or fall down the chasm. But Leona is now hanging on the edge of the now broken bridge on the side that the fountain is on, and she starts to plead with number 5 to help her. Number 5, however, points out that Leona had just tried to reverse their births. Leona admits that she was paranoid because she's forgotten how to trust because of 300 years of keeping the fountain a secret, and she pleads for help again, saying that she should have given them a chance. Number 5, however, is satisfied with leaving Leona to her fate. Number 4, though, questions why they're not helping Leona anymore, but number 5 insists that Leona doesn't deserve their help. Number 4, however, points out even though Leona is truly an adult, she wants to be a kid, and he repeats what number 5 said to him earlier in the episode about how it's the kids next door's job to help kids in despair. Looking at number 1's bald head again, number 5 decides to help Leona after all. So, using the squirt gun and the cord that the squirt gun is attached to, the Sector V operatives work together to treat the squirt gun and its cord like a rope. So, number 5 is able to swing across the chasm and rescue Leona before she falls. They make it back to the other side safely, but Leona sadly watches as the fountain falls down into the chasm. And Leona, though, seems to be content afterwards. She says it's time for them to head back up. So, eventually, the Sector V operatives and Leona return to the surface. They're back in the bathroom where the entrance to the underground school was. And the fountain's effects start to wear off. The Sector V operatives are back to their initial ages, or the ages that they're normally at. And Leona they realize that Leona will be an elderly person again very soon. Leona, however, assures them that she's now made her peace with that, and she encourages them to return to their classes before the teachers find out that they're missing. The Sector V operatives sadly say their goodbyes to Leona, but number 5 still sticks around for a little while longer. Number 5 has found, throughout the course of the underground school journey, number 5 and the other Sector V operatives found more of Leona's gold wristbands, and number 5 picked them all up and she returns them to Leona. Leona thanks number 5 again, and she shares a hug with number 5. But the fountain's effects wear off now. Leona is back to her elderly age now. Leona, though, tries to assure number 5 one more time that she'll be okay now, and she encourages number 5 to head off to class now. After they leave the bathroom, we see the delightful children's hands at the edge of the entranceway to the pathway underground, and it sounds like they're back to their normal ages again. We don't actually see their faces, but we do hear their groans, clearly injured from what happened earlier. As Leona is walking down the hallway, she comes across an out-of-order drinking fountain, and there's a lot of fungus growing around this fountain, but Leona smiles instead. It turns out that this fountain also has the Fountain of Youth's water in effect, because Leona now exits the school as a kid, and the episode ends with Leona walking down the street. So there you go. We have our second full episode of Season 3, and this full episode actually takes place within Gallagher Elementary School, or at least the grounds of Gallagher Elementary School, because of the underground school underneath Gallagher Elementary School. Now, over the course of the episode, it's probably safe to say that this episode would be considered a number 5 episode mostly, although number 4 still plays a rather significant role in this episode as well. As number 4 is the one number 4 is the most resistant to helping Leona out, but he eventually becomes more and more willing to help Leona over the course of the episode. while number 5 is the Sector V operative who really takes charge. Number 1 may be present, and he's the Sector V leader, yes. Number 1 is present for the mission, and he may be the Sector V leader, but number 5 was the sector operative who took charge for this particular mission. And we do find out that this is because number 5 still regrets not being able to help number 1 out, because this episode reveals that the delightful children are the ones responsible for making number 1 prematurely and permanently bald. And Tom Warburton did acknowledge in one of his blog posts that he hadn't planned that out beforehand. It just happened when he was coming up with the story for this episode. It just came to him as he was writing this particular scene, and he couldn't help but be amazed about this decision or this revelation. But yeah, it does go to show that Codename Kids Next Door does seem to have a lot of moments in the series that were not planned ahead, or they happen later on in the series run. But yeah, both the improvised storytelling approach and the planning storytelling approach do have their strengths and weaknesses. So that's just another example of improvising or coming up with a detail of the story without planning it ahead of time. Otherwise, some fans would notice that this episode does have some continuity hiccups. Namely, Leona has actually been shown in the background a few times in the first 2 seasons. Now, yeah, and I guess while it might not be, generally Codename Kids Next Door is a series that really isn't told in anachronic order, or it doesn't usually tell stories out of order of when the narrative happens, or Codename Kids Next Door is generally a story that, or it's a show that usually has just a straightforward narrative. So that's why this stands out in particular. Now, to be fair, they probably just hadn't come up with the idea of Leona's role with the Fountain of Youth when they had her cameo appearances. And I guess there are other explanations that fans could come up with to explain away those inconsistencies. But yeah, like I said, it didn't really bother me. It's just something I noticed. And another continuity hiccup would be Lunk of the Six Gum Gang. In this episode, Lunk is shown to be delightfulized, but in later entries of the series, Lunk is shown to be has his usual look, or he's not delightfulized in later entries in the series. Having said that, though, it has been shown in Operation Date that delightfulization could be reversed. So I guess you could just say Lunk was de-delightfulized off screen, just like how he was delightfulized off screen. So again, I guess that's just a story for fans to kind of fill in the blanks for themselves. But anyway, yeah, that's just a few minor details. They don't really ruin the episode for me. It's just details I noticed. Especially because, like I said, generally the series usually tells stories in order. They're not usually known to have episodes out of order or segments out of order, not counting when the TV airings were aired out of order. So not counting air date order, like production order tends to be a straightforward narrative from what I've observed. But like I said, that's a minor detail. Now, the situation with the Fountain of Youth. Yes, Leona has been using the Fountain of Youth for 300 years now. And yeah, this isn't the first story where the Fountain of Youth has been addressed, but usually the effects of the Fountain of Youth tend to differ depending on the story. Codename Kids Next Door in particular went with the idea that the Fountain of Youth's effects are only temporary, so someone would have to continuously use the Fountain of Youth in order to keep the effects going. So now that the Fountain of Youth has fallen down a chasm, though, yeah, no one can really use the fountain again. Well, then again, the delightful children managed to escape from the chasm, so I guess in theory someone could try to find the fountain, but it'd probably be even more risky than it was before. But yes, the Fountain of Youth doesn't get brought up again in later entries, as far as I can remember anyway. So otherwise, Oh yeah, I guess I might as well bring this up now. The ending where Leona still manages to use the Fountain of Youth through the out-of-order drinking fountain, I have noticed some fans had mixed feelings about that. Like, some fans thought it was nice that Leona could still be a kid again. Others, I've noticed, didn't seem to like that ending because they thought it kind of undermined Leona accepting that she can't stay a kid forever. So, yeah, I've noticed it seems to be a small debate. Like, it's not one of the bigger debates I see regarding the series, but it's a small debate I notice here or there sometimes. And otherwise, oh, that's right. When number one is changing back to his usual age, there is a blink and you'll miss it moment, but you do get to see number one with hair. Again, it's just very quick. You really have to catch it and not blink in order to catch it, but there is a brief moment where you do see number one's hair briefly. So some people took that as maybe the Fountain of Youth was able to reverse the effects of whatever the Delightful Children did to number one. And some fans find that interesting because the Delightful Children still look like their selves, except in toddler form when they became toddlers. And I don't want to give it away just yet for the sake of those who are just following along with these recap and thoughts videos, but let's just say that the Delightful Children were affected by something as well that some people would think would have been reversed by the Fountain of Youth, since number one's since whatever happened to number one to make him lose his hair was reversed by the Fountain of Youth. Again, I don't want to give too much away just yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we eventually get to it. And while I'm thinking about that particular detail, based on certain fan speculation, let's just say that the Delightful Children's desire for kids to become adults takes on a whole other meaning when you, at least with certain speculation about a certain revelation about the Delightful Children. Like I said, we'll cross that bridge eventually when we get to it. But otherwise, yes, this was our first full episode to take place in the school setting. And it was, like I said, I thought that was pretty cool how the segment before this episode actually was the first to introduce the school. It was like they were building up to or leading into this particular episode. And like I said, there's going to be some more school-related entries in later on in the series. Both segments, and yeah, there's even another full episode I'm thinking of that takes place in the school setting. So we'll be sure to cover more of that later on. And as for Season 3, there's one more full episode of Season 3. So 3 full episodes in Season 3. But yes, we'll cross that bridge eventually soon enough. But for now, there we go for the discussion for this particular episode. So as of this video, we've now discussed episode 30 of Codename Kids Next Door on this channel. Take care, and until next time.